In our culture, everything is based on success. But what is success? Who defined it? Who decided that success was the goal instead of fulfillment? What happens if we shake up that definition? What if we make our own definition of success? My name is Tony Grebmeyer, and on this podcast, I'm going to dig deep into the real stories behind success. Join me as I interview other entrepreneurs who've climbed up Success Mountain and have come back down to share their stories so you can succeed. If you're ready to join a community of other entrepreneurs redefining success and finding fulfillment, go to BeFulfilledLife.com and join the community. Now, let's dive into today's show.
Welcome to Be Fulfilled, the real stories behind success. My name is Tony Grebmeyer, and I'm excited for you to join us today. I've got a good friend of mine coming back for another stab at climbing up Success Mountain. We threw our pick in a couple days ago, and well, let's just say we didn't stick. So we decided to re-record, and that's what I like about business, is if at first you don't succeed, there's an old motto that says, try, and never give up trying. And that's why I love this guy, because he started out delivering pizzas from a trailer park. And he even started another business, a window cleaning business, with a ladder strapped to a 1993 Chevy Cavalier. I wonder if LeBron James was attached to that Cavalier. And then also, after years of struggling, he finally figured out the power of systems and grew businesses like that to over $180,000 a month while working less than 5 hours a week in business. Man, that's like 1 hour more than the 4-hour work week. So I'm excited for us today to hear from the founder of a marketing automation software called SendJim, the host of the Quick Talk podcast, which I think you changed the name, so we'll talk about that too. Also, your home service business, a blue-collar entrepreneur through and through, and one of the best, and just an incredible guy, got a great family, an incredible wife, created a thing called Honor and Fire. We're going to talk about that and so much more. Please welcome to the show, Joshua Latimer. How are you?
I am better than I deserve, is what Dave Ramsey always says. So I think that's how I am right now.
Who said that?
Dave Ramsey. That's his main catchphrase buzzword, right? Is that he's better than he deserves, which is actually a contentious thing, because depending on what your worldview is, some people say, yeah, I am better than I deserve. But then other people say, well, I deserve greatness. So I'm not better than I deserve because I deserve greatness. That's a whole philosophical rabbit hole.
I like it. When I call my sponsor, I ask him how he's doing. He just says one thing to me. He's like, sober and above ground. I'm like, all right, cool. The rest can be then created from there, right?
Yeah. It actually tells you a lot about a person and kind of their frame of the world based on what they say when you ask them that.
Oh, man. So how are you? How is my friend doing today?
I'm doing really good in some areas, struggling in other areas, but overall, really, really good. It's been an interesting year. I haven't had a job in over 15 years, which is cool. I just start companies and do weird things and make mistakes and have some wins. But this last year for me has been kind of a transition period. So one of my software company, we hired a CEO to run it. And so I've been out of the business for a year. Actually, in May, it was a year. So that's been interesting. And then I have a company called Automate, Grow, Sell, and I sold off a majority of that, but I'm still partners with the new guy, and he's been growing that, but I'm also out of the day-to-day with that. So I've been trying to figure out, what the next thing looks like for me, and that's a fun process and a frustrating process all mixed together.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of take a little bit of what you just said, skip the what's your definition of success question, because I think your definition is starting more businesses, having more fun, and being flexible and free. Like, I'm sure we could warp it into something really cool. But I just want to talk about what you dropped. I thought that was really, really cool. How even in your bio talking about, working 5 hours a week, you were able to, build this business. And now it sounds like there's a lot of play and fun happening in your life. Let's talk about first hiring a CEO for your software company, SendJim. What was that process like for you?
Well, I had help. So the truth is that business was the hardest business I ever did. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I got punched in the mouth so much. We spent $1 million to build this software. On paper, from the outside looking in, when you're not in software is like the sexiest business model ever. You're like, oh yeah, if I just get 10,000 people to buy the thing and I'll make $1 gajillion. It sounds simple and it sounds like it's a low level of complexity. It was very, very hard. And for 5 years trying to build that company, I never took a penny out of it. It was, an 80-hour-a-week total focus thing. Just kept failing, and it wasn't working. And then we got it working. And then it grew almost a little bit too fast. And then I had to fire half of my team, and we had to restructure. So we got to the point with that business where I was like hyperventilating, Tony. Like I was so stressed out in my body. I was scared, the stress load. And I brought in some friends. So I have an amazing network of people. And one of my friends, name's Mike Dalkey. He's an investor. I'm not really a businessman per se. I'm more of a marketer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a dreamer. This guy's a business guy. And he came in and helped me fix the company. So he said, all right, we need to do this. We need to do that. We need $100,000 for this. We do. And even though it was a nightmare, he helped me really turn the whole thing around. And he helped me hire a CEO, which was amazing because I think there's such a difference between a real operator. I know you have business partners, so I'd be curious on your side too, the difference between the dreamer guy and the integrator guy. And that was missing in my business. And so a lot of things were on fire. And even though, financially it looked like it was doing these big things, it was a nightmare. And it's not now. The CEO we hired is totally opposite from me. He's smarter than I am. He's an MBA. He's an Air Force guy. Super, super organized, spreadsheety, just very even, steady guy, which is exactly the opposite of me. And he's crushing it. He's doing great. And so I've learned a lot in the last year.
Sounds like my business partner down just a couple doors down. He was asking me a few minutes ago. He's like, "Hey, can you help me attach something like a spreadsheet to like my Outlook?" And I'm like, "Outlook? Like, shouldn't you be using Gmail? That's what I use. Why are you using Outlook?" He's like, "I got my spreadsheets just perfect." He's an MBA, so it's like sounds like the same guy.
We need those people. And there's what I'm realizing is like how critical both pieces are. So I can take an idea scribbled on a napkin and turn it into a 7-figure thing. Like I can take an idea and go boom, and I've done that 3 times with different industries. But once I get there, it gets weird. Right. So like there's organizational stress and strain, and you have a really large company. So if you didn't have it's impossible for you to do what you've done without an operator that's checking the boxes, of course. And I really was missing that. And that's why none of my businesses have gotten up to even 10 million a year you can't. I really believe you can be even a solopreneur entrepreneur. You can do $1 million in revenue, whatever that means. And that is a valuable skill set, but building and growing an organization is a different skill set. So when I have conversations with Daniel, probably like you do with your partner, he's always trying to pull me back down to earth, and I'm trying to pull him up into the sky. I'm like, we can do this, we can do that. And it's this weird balancing act of going for it and thinking outside the box mixed with pragmatism, basically.
Yeah, I call it like when you were a kid and you'd go to like the park and there was a teeter-totter. And you're like, let's go on the teeter-totter. And if the person was bigger or smaller than you could have fun, right? And the goal for me always was not to just go up and down, but to find the balance to see if you could actually not do anything and then just stop and just kind of have a cool conversation. That was like one of my goals. And my business partner and I think we've been able to kind of balance each other out. Like you were talking about, you're going for the sky. He's like, whoa, let me keep my feet planted on the ground. And you're just like, hey, can we just find a little bit of in between? And then this statement has really helped me over the last like probably 5 or 6 years is you do you. Like I'm not going to go in and try to like wonder what it takes to have an MBA. I'm not going to wonder what it takes to go in and manage from the accounting side of it, right? Let me go do what I'm good at, like sales, marketing, and then hire experts to come in and then be the in-between. And that's what, Doug allows me creative play and flexibility, but we still have those kind of fun conversations. So when you're sitting talking to Daniel now, because you're not necessarily in the business, right? You're kind of working. And if he asks you, you can give him maybe some high level stuff, but
we have phone calls, a couple times a week.
But what are conversations like now for you when you're looking at the business where like, let's say a year and a half ago, you're like, oh my gosh, like, we spent all this money. It's been 5 years, What are your conversations like now? Are they fun for you because you're not necessarily in the business like you were?
Yes. And that's one of the big epiphanies I had was that I don't want to be an operator. So what was happening, Tony, like I was shaming myself. I was in like this infinity loop of guilt and shame, feeling like I wasn't worthy. But the thing is that I'm a square peg and I was trying to cram myself through a round hole. rather than me trying to ask who I needed around me, I was trying to figure out how to do the thing. So what Russell Brunson always says, ask who, not how. I don't need to know all the things. I need to know the people that know the things. And I knew that sort of, but it really kind of came to full manifestation with this company because everything blew up and it was a nightmare. And by the grace of God, my friend Mike Dahlke came in and literally saved the company. And it's not like the company just had to fail, but I was so redlined, I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't know what to do. So I learned a lot. It is fun for me now because there's so much order and structure and there's a clear path. And I'm just learning to appreciate other personality types, which I think is so huge. You know, we like to tend to be around people who are just like us. But maybe it's because I'm getting older. I don't know, but I have so much more appreciation for people who 15 years ago I would have thought were just total weirdos, right? Their personality is different, their worldview is different. But now I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Like, why do they think like that? And why do they behave like that? Why do they react like that? Where's the value in there? And there is value in there. We all need each other. And
well, I mean, I love like just how your mind, I mean, from what you're giving us as a glimpse of just kind of how maybe your mind operates. Like, I love the fact that you can have like the 7-figure paper napkin conversation, right? With yourself maybe and somebody else kind of leaning over your shoulder looking at it. And then you're like, dude, I can go do that. And then you go and create it. And then you're like, okay, I'm done. And let somebody come in and run it, right? But still know that you created something, right?
It's like a relay race. It's like you take an idea that no one even thinks is possible. You prove everyone wrong. You get a model, you monetize it, you scale it up, and then you hand the baton off to an operator. That's kind of like, at least currently, how I'm kind of viewing it. And someone like Daniel couldn't have done what I did with this software company. He's not the guy to take it from a piece of paper to where I got it. But I can't do what he does. And so it's like this, it's almost like a board of directors versus a Steve Jobs, right? There's always going to be friction, but they both need each other. You got to have some accountability and structure, but you got to have the crazy guy that's thinking of cool world-changing things.
You know, you talk about that company getting somebody to come in, and then you know, during your intro, you talked about, you know, your other company, kind of an events-based kind of coaching and business company. And then you're like, well, I got out of that. I sold a large portion of it. And I still have a little bit of, percent ownership. So now you take that, and then all of a sudden you got into podcasting. I met you through going to, I think somebody introduced us, and I see you start going to, funnel hacking live events. And next thing I know, you're in his inner circle, Russell Brunson. Then I just see your success. And then all of that stuff aside, I just get to know a really cool guy who, at the end of the day is very humble, very, very kind, loving. And over the last year or so, you and your wife kind of set out to take a little bit of what you've learned along the way, some of your family values, and throw it into your next project, Honor and Fire. And I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about that today and seeing, if there's some families listening or parents saying, you know what, like I'd love to learn a little bit about how you went and created that, 3 companies. You're like, cool, great idea. I'm going to go start splitting some wood in my backyard and filming some serious fun commercials. And next thing I know, Honor and Fire was born. And I was fortunate enough, along with Amber, to come and record an episode with you and Ashley. And I thought it was just so cool what you're up to. But I would love for you to share kind of with the audience what Honor and Fire is all about.
Sure. So the reason we wanted to hire the CEO and get me out of the software, the reason I sold off 90% of Automate Grow Sell to my partner, Brandon Vaughn, who's amazing, was for one reason. It was because my wife and I have had this heart. Sounds cheesy, but it's true. Like our stomach hurts when we think about entrepreneurial families with kids. When we think about, the divorce rate's 50% or whatever, it's got to be higher for entrepreneurs. I can't find data to substantiate that, but it's like a perfect concoction for destruction to be trying to grow a business and have 3 kids and have a wife who maybe wants to do her thing too, and trying to not balance it, but just hold it together. And so being that I have coached a lot of people, this idea of family systems would come up all the time. So one of the things I tell people in business is, your business is perfectly calibrated to give you exactly the result that you're currently getting. And another thing I say is your business is already fully systemized. Now, maybe you don't follow up with leads Well, that's a zero-touch follow-up system. It's a bad system. But like the way we talk to ourselves, the way we do or don't take care of our body, like we have good things, bad things, everything's a system, including your family. So we want people to grow big businesses and have incredible marriages and raise kids who are super equipped and with an unfair advantage and equipped with entrepreneurial knowledge. And that's what we want. We have 5 kids. We're obsessed with that. Now, we couldn't do anything with it except talk about it for years and years and years. And so when we got in the position where we could, quote unquote, figure out what that looks like and quote unquote, do something with it, we did. And that's why I sold off the business and why we hired the CEO, very specifically for that reason. We don't have it all figured out. We've done some cool things. We've sat down and interviewed some amazing entrepreneurial families like you and your wife, Amber, and, Russell and his wife, and a bunch of people, just really cool people that have not just the swag on the business side, but they have great kids, an imperfect but great marriage, great stories. And we try to figure out the systems that they use. One of my favorite systems from your interview, Tony, actually my wife and I still talk about it, is this idea of making edits in your life. And how, rather than shaming yourself and saying, oh, I suck, I'm failing at this area, you're like, no, that's interesting. Let's look at that. And, let's edit that. Like, what can I just tweak? And so we've accumulated all these cool systems from all these entrepreneurial families. And it's been awesome, but super early in the process. And we have lots of ideas and things that we want to do. We're just still learning and figuring it out.
What are some of your the values that you have around your house for your kids and for your family?
We have a lot of them. So the first types, there's actually different types of family systems. So we're developing this framework, right? You have identity systems, for example. So we believe, just like a company needs to have a brand kit, for example, what are the 3 hex codes for your colors that you're going to use in your literature and your marketing collateral, and what's your slogan, what's your catchphrase, what things are you going to trademark, what's your logo look like? We apply that to our family, in a simple way. So for example, we have a document called the Latimer Birthright. And it's this whole epic manifesto that our kids, recite and read, and it's on our fridge, and it tells them who they are. It's a document that says, I'm a child of God. I am here for greatness. I will read God's word. I will do hard things. I will defend my mind. I will defend the weak. There's all these epic, like Rocky Balboa feeling things that we identify with. And our kids are little, but we're drilling it into them, and it's on the wall, and we have a family logo, for example. Actually, the t-shirt that I'm wearing right now was designed for my family. So it says, do hard things. That's an example of a family system. So I didn't invent the phrase do hard things, but we heard it somewhere years ago and we resonated with it, And so we've turned it into our own proprietary language as a family. We have isms, keep chopping wood, do hard things. You are not a victim. It is not Mount Everest. It doesn't matter how hard it is. It only matters if it's worth it. So these are things my kids would tell you if they were here, because it's part of our culture, it's part of our identity. We also have Latimer of the Month. There's a little award ceremony we do. We have core values for our family, faith, character, leadership, and work ethic. And so my 4-year-old will tell you that. She might get 2 out of 4 at this point, but we're drilling them in. And that's an example of a system.
No, I love it. A lot of people struggle, and I'm not just saying a lot. I'm saying a lot of people struggle because they're not present. Their life is chaotic and crazy and busy, and they barely have enough strength. I remember my mom. My mom always used to kind of tell me this, man, I'm so tired. I just fell into bed last night. After a hard day of work, it was not like I got a chance to unwind, turn on, television and watch, my favorite show that was recorded on a VCR. It was like I literally got home, I think, took off like my earrings, my mom would say, and literally just kind of fell into the bed and woke up the next morning. The alarm was going off and out and running. I mean, that's a system as we're calling it. But the reality was, it was just do anything you can to put food on the table and keep the lights on in the house and provide for my sister and myself. And it wasn't until later in life when I really sat down and talked to my mom. And one of the kind of ideas came up is like, you just do what you got to do. But when you take control like you have and you're editing, I love that. That's like a really good thing. I learned that from my father. My dad would take any room and said, rather go spend more money. He's like, why don't we just edit this room and edit that room, take from here, put there. And now you didn't spend any money, but you created. And a lot of us need to create with what we have instead of going out and getting stuff that we can't afford or doing things that are way out of the norm. Just edit a few things. What is working and what isn't working. And quickly, my mom, why I just love her. She was my first and will always be the best mentor that I had in my life, is that she instilled like, you can do it. And she never doubted me. And what you were just telling me about, your 4-year-old may get 2 out of 4 right, is that there is a belief system that you have planted in your kids. And that belief system is different than the previous generations for your family. You've created now a new foundation, a new belief structure, and new systems that even if they get half of it right, they're going to pass on to their kids and they're going to be better for it. So I love the fact that you've set out on a path to, invent, create, and then polish. And a lot of people don't like to polish because it takes work, and you are working every single day. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that, because I think it's really, really awesome. And I love the fact that you do hard things and you chop wood and you show your kids that it's okay to make mistakes and it's also okay to win.
Absolutely. We celebrate success. One of my favorite quotes is, be cautious of people who don't cheer when you win. I mean, anybody watching this, if there's people in your life that don't cheer when you win or they try to downplay it, you need to hit the eject button on that relationship. But
as fast as you can too, because people are always waiting for others to fail. And it's just not like it's a bad thing. It's just a life thing that we're waiting going, hope Josh and Tony fail today. I'd love to swoop in and take over what they, failed. I'll make it better. And the reality is, even if you had everything that I did, you're probably not going to do it as good as I do.
Well, let's think about why someone would be like that. Because I don't think people are overtly consciously saying, I hope someone else fails. There's some people like that. Most people aren't really like that on the top of the consciousness there.
Well, I just have edited those people out of my life.
Right. But they exist. So when I look at like why, it has to do with their identity. Everything revolves around identity. I mean, the level of success that you attain in life is going to match your identity. The reason people self-sabotage is because something goes good and they pull themselves back down to the appropriate level per their identity. Your kids are going to have an identity right now. They already have one. So like creating these family systems isn't an effort of me. I'm not really creating anything. What I'm doing is I'm directing their identity. I'm controlling it. So another quote, because I'm a quote maniac, is, if you don't tell your kids who they are, the world will do it for you. And so they're going to get, human beings have to have an identity. It's part of our structure. And so we're going to grab it either from sports or from sex or from status or from money or from whatever, fill in the blank with something. And all I'm trying to do is get ahead of it and tell them who they are. And what's funny about it is because kids' minds are so malleable, it just becomes a truth to them. So when they say Latimers do hard things, right? Or I can literally do anything. It doesn't matter how hard it is, as long as it's worth it. I don't tell them they can just have anything. You can have anything if you're willing to pay the price and count the cost and do it. There's going to be pain and suffering, but who cares? If it's worth it to you, then do that thing. In their brain, that's not like a concept. That's 2 + 2 = 4. And because it's embedded into their identity. And that's the idea with it. So it's not like some mythical, I'm a great dad. I'm just trying to be intentional, almost like you would with a budget. You have money coming in. I used to work at a bank. A lot of high income people don't have any money. They make $200,000-300,000 grand a year. They spend $301,000 a year, right? Then I'd have an old farmer come in, and in 1999 F-150, and he'd have $2 million in his checking account. And I would kind of sit there and think, what in the heck is going on? You know what I mean? So if you're directing your money with a budget, you're not changing the money. You're just directing it. You're trying to pay attention to it. And that's what we're trying to do with our kids.
I love it. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break on the Be Fulfilled podcast show, talking to the one, the only Joshua Latimer. Now, if you stick around and you bring a pen and paper back, you're probably going to learn a couple more things that you can take and implement into your life, because every time I sit down and chat with Joshua, I know that I'm a better person for listening to what he has to say. Plus, he's like the book of quotes. So if you need some more quotes to, I don't know, put in your next journal, put up at your house, put on your computer, send to a friend, be inspired, be motivated, you'll learn that. Plus, you'll learn how this guy never stopped iterating from the day he got the opportunity to create for himself. And I love the fact, from living in a trailer park delivering pizza, he's still using a little bit of that humor today of what it was like in some of his videos that he's created, and being silly and having fun, and taking that as that's where I was. It's not where I am. And a lot of what we're talking about today is the mindset of what you have currently, and then envisioning where you want to be, and then creating systems or having plans or networking, building relationships, inviting the right people in, editing out the ones that are just really there to hold you back. And we're going to have so much more fun. So I invite you to stick around, and we'll be right back on the Be Fulfilled podcast show.
Are you ready to break the mold? So many people seem stuck in society, but you're not one of them. If you were, you wouldn't be listening to this. And I know for a fact that right here, right now, inside you, there's greatness. And a great way to help bring that out is the 12-week journey to fulfillment. So head over to BeFulfilledJournal.com and use the coupon code podcast, and you get a special rate on us. It's our way to say thanks for listening. As well, there's access to a private community of entrepreneurs ready to support you and your business. That's BeFulfilledJournal.com.
We are back on the Be Fulfilled podcast show. Tony Grebmeyer along with Joshua, and we are just talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Oh, wait, I don't think we're talking about that. I think we're talking about how to have fun, not to screw too many things up. But if you do, it's okay, as long as you're having fun and you're learning from your mistakes, because life is filled with lessons. Japanese proverb, fall 7, get up 8. That's what we're talking about too. But also seeing when you've got to a spot where you can't go any further because that's not your skill set, and then hire people who have that skill set to come in and take what your idea or vision or dream and get it to the next level. Right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. We've been all over the place. It's been really fun. But yeah.
Well, if you've ever had a conversation with me, I'm not going to stay in my lane. My kid in the back seat the other day, I'm driving. He's like, Dad. I'm like, what? He's like, pay attention to the road. I'm like, my car's got like these little things on it that keep the car in its right lane. I'm like, let's just go and have a great time. And he's like, Dad. I'm like, I get it. And then I finally realized what he was talking about. I also need to pay attention where I'm going.
Yeah.
Because even though I have trust in my car's still going to let me down. But if I have my eyes on the road and my car has it, we're going to probably have a better chance of arriving where we want to go. So let's talk about it as we come down from success, the mountaintop, as you're kind of building all these systems. What are some things that you're just kind of passionate about? I know that you got the honor and fire. I know you have your family and your businesses, but when all of that's just kind of off to the side and it's just you, what brings you joy? What brings you just excitement in your life?
Man, I think learning, believe it or not, it's coming from a kid with like a 2.5 GPA. And that was because my teachers liked me enough to give me falsely high grades. It still was only 2.5. Education, I'm upset. I learn all the time. I just listen. I consume a lot of content. For the last year, I've been really fascinated by just the idea of why do people do the things that they do? Why do we do the things? There's a scripture in the Bible where Paul talks about, he says, why do I do the things I don't want to do? And the things that I do want to do, I won't do. What a wretched man I am. And I read that. I'm like, yep, that's pretty much summarizes everybody I've worked with. I've coached over 1,000 individual small business owners, not like at a conference, like over the years, like I've worked with families that have businesses. And it's so fascinating, the nuance and the differences and the mental blocks and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. And just the way I've changed over the year, I know less now than I did 10 years ago. Like, I'm gradually realizing how much I don't know as I get older. I think that's probably natural. I'm more paranoid in a positive way sometimes. There's this concept of productive paranoia. So when I do project planning and things now, I can see blind spots and things that punch me in the mouth, before. And so I'm a little bit more. And then, but what's interesting to me is you can have a young kid, like Wesley is a kid I work with. He's 25. He's going to hit $1 million in revenue with a cleaning business this year. He was a former college athlete, real focused. He's not married, but he's just executing, right? He's just running. And then you'll have someone else who's, 53, massive potential, great personality, super smart, but they're just stuck. And they've had a business at 300,000 or 400,000 for 15 years. And it could come down to this one little tiny thing. And so I look at a Wesley and I look at the other guy, and I don't know. I think trying to connect those dots is what's making me excited in the last year, is learning.
I love the fact that you talked a little bit about, your GPA, right? Like, and I think that's important in this day and age. I was just reading an article Ezra Firestone just wrote and put up just a little bit ago on Facebook, just about like the 13 years, right? You kind of like, from elementary, go off to, junior high, high school, and some of us are fortunate enough to go to college. College wasn't for me. I went to play sports, and somehow around the way, I got an opportunity to be in a broadcasting program. And then I used that, didn't even finish my 2 years at a junior college, 13 units shy, and then took that and catapulted myself into business, right? And so don't allow what happened stop you from who you want to become.
Yeah.
And I love that you can identify like, yeah, I wasn't the best. My teachers maybe liked me a little bit better and they gave me some passing grades so I could at least, go through it. But education isn't for everyone that is delivered in a degree, but self-education.
Big difference between schooling and education.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to play semantics, but you know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody fits on the assembly line in the box. In fact, more and more people, non-traditional education is mainstream now. You have people like Elon Musk saying you don't need a college degree. President Trump this week said that the federal government is going to start hiring based on skills, not degrees. That's a massive thing. And I think that's awesome. I don't know, like the school system, I don't like learning about things I don't care about.
Harvard and Princeton announced plans to bring back students for the fall semester. Interesting thought. Harvard plans to bring up to 40% of the undergrads back to campus for the fall, including all first-year students. So then the question came is, how much is tuition, right? And comes to find out, and don't quote me because I'm not perfect with reading, Harvard isn't giving a discount. Princeton is giving like a 10% discount. But your schooling, almost, 80% to 90% is going to be online. So isn't that interesting? So
the whole model is disrupted right now. Like, I'm excited. These institutions are businesses. Like, to pretend like Harvard is some sort of like warm, fuzzy public service. They have a 40 or a $60 billion endowment fund. I saw a guy do the math yesterday on a video where they could give all of their students free tuition for like 300 years straight just on their endowment fund. They don't need the money. They're still charging full price to give virtual classes. But what's happening, maybe just with Corona too, is self-directed education is blowing up. And there's so many skills you can learn online courses, the information business in general is blowing up. And it makes sense to me. My son is 13 and I hired him to be my podcast editor for my podcast. And there's some errors and mistakes, and grammar's a hill that we've been climbing up, but he's doing it, right? And he's loving it, and he's in the software, and he's cutting things, he's publishing it, he's writing the show notes, he's going into Facebook and posting it, and he's learning this skill. And so I have him watching some courses. He's watching a course right now on TikTok, actually, because we have a friend who has a gajillion TikTok followers, and she's monetized it, and it's just cool. So like the value he gets out of that, in my opinion, is just infinitely more valuable than, some sort of standardized thing.
No. And you know what? I want to talk a little bit about your son for 13. Can you share his name?
Yeah, his name's Maverick.
Maverick?
Yeah, we're going to Alaska in 2 weeks too, because another family system is a rite of passage trip with Dad when our kids turn 13. He's our oldest, so this is the first one. We're going to go do man stuff and catch fish and hike around in the woods, and it's going to be awesome.
So Maverick, you're not listening to this podcast necessarily, but I know that your dad will share with you because we're talking about you. That's awesome. And you know what? I commend your effort, right? Like the number one thing that so many kids and people are against is trying. And I just love the fact that you have a dad who just sees the opportunity with you and wants to help you grow to the next level. So take it, run with it. If you ever have any editing questions, don't ask me. I haven't edited in like 25 years. But the one thing I do know is that you're doing the hard stuff, right? And you're learning, and it's okay to scrape your knees. Just get back up and keep going. And proud of you. I think it's really, really cool, Maverick. I will tell you, you have an amazing podcast, and you've changed a little bit, kind of like we were talking pre-show about. I've pivoted a little bit, and I'm constantly thinking about pivoting and making adjustments. What's the show that you currently have for your podcast?
Well, it's called now the Growth Vault podcast. And Yeah, so it used to be called the Quick Talk Podcast, where I was doing pretty good. I had 300 reviews almost, and I'd done it for several years. I lost all that when I changed the name, but it's the same show. It's directed mainly to local business owners. The problem, though, was, because I had all these different companies, the podcast was confusing. It was like I'd teach and I'd say, yeah, you need to go buy my software because of this. But then I'd teach something else and say, oh, no, you really need this event for this other company that I have. Oh, no, family systems go over here. And it was just so discombobulated. So rebranded it, solely focusing on local home service business owners and just helping them learn how to automate and scale their business. And that's pretty much it. So, yeah, my wife and I are going to start a different podcast.
Yeah, and just get a different channel, and then you keep it like totally separate. Then you don't have to be confusing.
We're going to talk more about just world events and family.
Are you going to do Honor and Fire, the podcast?
Yeah. We're not sure what we're going to call it, but yes, that's exactly.
Honor and Fire doesn't sound like a good name.
Well, let me ask your opinion. So I'm debating between a few different names. First one that's on a contender is the Family War Plan. The Family War Plan. That's one idea. And it's this idea of business and estate planning and educating your kids and taking responsibility, almost like Ryan Mickler has this big brand for men called Order of Man, and his catchphrase is protect, provide, preside. It's this epic, like, be a man. So like the Family War Plan, I like that on the one hand. Then we have a different idea for a name called Seven Figure Families. And Seven Figure Families is cool, but it also almost might sound a little bit like Grant Cardone or something, like too much emphasis on the revenue or something like that. So I'm not sure there. And then our third one was called Systems and Grit. Systems and Grit. The idea being with the right systems and the right amount of grit, you can do anything you want in your family, in your business, whatever you want.
What is is Honor and Fire the name? Like behind everything?
That's the name of our company. Yeah. That's the name of the company.
There's something magical about that and then finding a subline for it. Because your brand is like what you're after, right? And it's kind of like the Order of Man, like, right? It's like Ryan's whole thing, right? But then you have the subline, which could be, when you were talking, I just watched War Games this last weekend, just happened to like put on War Games. And I was like, when you were talking about your first name, and I was like, War Games with Latimers. It's like, really, it's like life, it's business, it's everything, right? Because it's all something deep down inside that you're trying to find. And at the end of the day, you guys are going to be great, whatever name you choose. But, it's so cool to hear you guys talk. I would love, my wife and I talk about it all the time, just keep iterating, keep growing, keep trying new things. And then we're finding more and more stuff to do together, which has brought us closer and closer together in so many ways. So I love the fact that you're going down another road with your wife. So many people in business too, they're like, oh, my wife doesn't know anything that I do. Right.
Well, for years she didn't. I mean, we almost got divorced. I lit my personal life on fire several times chasing down business stuff. And the truth is that nothing I've accomplished, this is not a cliche thing I'm saying to be a nice husband. I'm telling you factual truth. Nothing I've ever done happens without her. The difference is I happen to be front stage and she happened to be backstage for most of our journey so far, and kind of differentiating that. And a lot of the conflict comes from that with a lot of entrepreneurs. It's easy to get a lot of attaboys from your friends and colleagues when you're, crushing it, doing your business stuff. And then you have this ego, and then you go home and you're just a guy that needs to take out the trash. In fact, Russell Brunson's wife told us a hilarious story. He had $1 million day. He made $1 million in one day, and he's pumped. And everybody at work is like, Russell, you're so amazing. Right. And he's just a guy. He's a super smart, talented guy, but he's just a guy. Well, he goes home and he's not super cool Russell guy to her. And she's mad because he's gone all day and he wasn't communicating well. And he's like, hey, babe, I had $1 million day. And she's like, yeah, whatever. Just will you take the trash out? And like, I just think that is so funny because thank God for our spouses to keep us connected to reality, to humble us, to hold us accountable, to challenge us. It's amazing.
I think it's like the picture that I used to have of when I would come home, or a figure you'd see on television, like a man would come home and the wife would just say, here's Johnny, watch Johnny. I need to, you go change Johnny, right? Like There's a switch that gets flipped. It's like, yeah, that's great that you did all that. Good job. You hit all those home runs today in the ball game. You're still dad. You need to show up. You need to take care of. You need to do things, right? You're still a husband. Like, I need all that. And but I wouldn't be where I'm at. I've said it many, many times, and I say it all the time to my wife. Like, I appreciate her for helping me get to do what I love, and now I'm trying to make sure we do incorporate more of what she loves, and that's part of being empty nesters. Well, we do have 2 kids because of COVID staying at our house, but they're going to go back to their life in a couple of weeks, and things will go back to what they're supposed to be, which is very still different in the world that we live in life. And my wife, we normally are traveling now, and we're not traveling, so we're dreaming. And I think that's what I want to leave the world with today when they listen to this podcast is everything that we talked about today is really about having fun and being a dreamer. Not feeling like you have to conform to some system, but instead know that there are systems around everything, is, paraphrasing Josh, and really start having fun, like dream. I was just talking to an entrepreneur friend today and saying, instead of just telling me what you want, like, I want to go travel to X, what would it be like, booking a ticket, booking a hotel, putting your feet on the street, listening to the music, tasting the food, walking down the street holding hands. What would it feel like when you're shopping? Like, explain more than just, I want to go here. And that's what I get every time I talk with you. There's layers and layers and layers beyond just, hey, I want to go launch a software company, right? And I love what you brought today. And I love the fact that you shared a lot of quotes. And I do want to allow people an opportunity to learn more about you. Where would you direct people? What's the best resource for you?
They can just send a handwritten letter to P.O. Box. No, I'm just kidding. Carrier pigeon. Send your carrier pigeon to Ludington, Michigan. No, I'll probably go to honorandfire.com. There's not a ton there. We're building. We have some amazing resources, all kinds of cool stuff we're doing. And there's a family quiz assessment about systems. And there's some other resources that you'll find when you go there. But that's probably the best bet. Or you can look me up on Facebook. I'm on Facebook a lot.
All right. We need one quote that we're going to end the show on today.
Ooh. One?
Yeah, you have a gun.
I got it.
Don't pull the gun. It's on you. And they said, give me the best quote you got or you're gone.
Everybody sees the wine, but no one sees the crushing of the grapes. It's one of my all-time favorites. And one of the things I hate about internet marketing, about entrepreneurship being mainstreamed, about the Gary V hustle grind, Grant Cardone, get your Ferrari trophy wife. I personally I can't stand that stuff. It's not that they're saying bad, like technically wrong information. It's just the aura around it. The truth is that everybody's life is really, really messy. I try to make a point to talk about all the stupid things I've done as often as I can, because I don't want to make people think that because they're messing up a lot and things are on fire, that they're somehow different and that the people that succeed have got it together, because it's completely false. It's not true. So everyone sees the wine. No one sees the crushing of the grapes. And if you are getting your grapes crushed at the moment, hold on. Just hold on. Sometimes just holding ground is the equivalent of going forward. Just don't go backwards. Just hold on. And tomorrow will be a better day.
I love that. Thank you so much. Reminds me of that one cool quote, never quit on a bad day. Hey, that is Joshua Latimer. My name is Tony Grubmeyer. And until next time, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, choose to make today the absolute best day of your life. And everything you learned and heard today can be found at TonyGrubmeyer.com.
Thanks for listening to today's show. But before you go, let me ask you a question. How would you like to be the architect of your journey in this game we call life? Take the next step now at www.TonyGrubmeyer.com. Enter your details to get the first week of the Be Fulfilled Journal for free. It includes access to our private community of thousands of other entrepreneurs. It'll give you more clarity and freedom in your day. And it might just change your life forever.